carefully together to be able to understand what this section is referring to. 153 is saying subject to section 154, meaning provided that 154 exists, happen, because 154 relies on an act of a National Assembly which says may make provision for the establishment of contingency fund, and for authorizing the President to make advances from that fund if he or she is satisfied that there has arisen unforeseen and urgent need for expenditure for which no other provision exists. You just confirmed there exists no contingency fund. So if there was a contingency fund, there might not be a need for supplementary appropriation. This is what this is saying, that if there was a contingency fund which is created by an act of Parliament giving the President powers to make authorization, authorizing the President to make advances from that fund when there is an emergency, there is no need for supplementary, there might not be a need for supplementary appropriation. But now that we have confirmed there is no contingency fund, there is need for supplementary appropriation. Then, if in respect of any financial year, it is found that the amount appropriated under the Appropriation Act is insufficient, or that it is in need, that a need has arisen for a purpose of which no amount has been appropriated by that act, a supplementary estimate showing the sums required shall be laid before the Assembly before the expenditure has been incurred. This is what it means. If we had a contingency fund, then the President would have, and we would have given the President powers to make advances from that fund when an emergency arrives. But there is no contingency fund. This is that's what exactly it is saying. No, because I raised this issue with you several times because I've been concerned with the powers of violence. And I told you in front of the Minister of Justice that lays with him and get advice on whether you have these powers to do this or not, because I was particularly concerned reading the Constitution. Now, I'll take you back to the issue that when we appropriate a whole sum, and as far as you don't go above that sum, you feel you're doing something correct. But when we appropriate, there is a reason why we go through the budget line by line. And that whole purpose would be defeated if you have the powers, as far as we don't appropriate 22 billion to you and say go and do whatever you want with it. And you are the people who decide where you want it. No, we choose line by line where it wants to go. And whole purpose would be defeated if you just had the powers to do whatever you want with the money. And I'll read to you section 152.3. It says, when estimates of expenditure have been approved by the National Assembly, an appropriation bill shall be introduced in the National Assembly for the issue from the consolidated fund of the sums necessary to meet that expenditure, under separate votes for the several services required and for the purpose specified therein. That is clear. We appropriate for a specific purpose for the services required. So if you want to change that, budget formulation is within your purview. You can change it, but you must come to us for approval. And I don't understand why there is a problem, because we all agree that this is necessary. We were the ones who encouraged you to do this. So if you have come to us with an SAP, and that's what we were expecting. We were asking, what are you doing? We are gathering data. We expected when you gather data, you will quantify that data and come to us and say, this is the amount we need because this is what, and we will approve it. There is no problem. This is for the entire Gambia. We don't have a problem with it. Is the issue, why are you scared to come to Parliament and we do things the right way? I don't understand.
Yes, I just want to corroborate at that point that has been raised by others.
So what I'm concerned now is what this particular committee, what stand we are going to take. Because last week what we decided, we asked them to hold certain transactions. Notwithstanding, they've continued and added and even added more transactions to what we've said. So for me, I am asking this committee to hold the ministry in contempt and ask them to put everything at hold, and then not only that, but also to go through all their expenditure, recommend for the Auditor General to send us a proper audited report, and then we'll look into implementing some.
Yes, thank you, Honorable. I think let's first of all try to follow our line of questioning, and we will take a decision as to...
Because he keeps insisting that what he is doing is right. So then we can come up with a...
We have our views and the committee will take a decision. I mean, anybody can insist, we cannot stop him from insisting, but he also...
Some concern. The issue is how legal is it what you have done? And I'm saying technically, no, it is not legal. She has said it very clearly in the Constitution, reciting the Constitution. When we were allocating, we were making law to allocate expenditure. That was done by the authority of Parliament. And it was law when we decided that this amount, 17 million is for travel board for this particular ministry or particular department. That was the law that we made. So technically, that law can only be changed by us, not by you. Because we are not a law-making institution. That's what I'm saying. The decision to allocate to a particular sector is law. That's why you brought an appropriation bill. And that was made into a law. And that law authorizes the spending department to do this and do that. So if you want to change that from what it is, or you want to withdraw that amount allocated to that particular sector, you don't have authority. You have to come back to the law-making institution which decided that, to change it. That's what I'm saying. That's the technicality that you don't see. Environment for me is a fraud. It does not go with any law.
We have had a meeting with the Justice Minister, and I think we will allow the legal opinion from the Justice Minister to share his legal opinion. Yes, I have consulted him. We have had a meeting not only on this, on other issues. And I think they are the supreme institution for us to advise us legally. I think we can allow, invite them to come and do the interpretation. But in our opinion, there is nothing in the Constitution that talks about environment. That's why we are guided by the Public Finance Act, and we heavily rely on it. And up to this minute, we will continue to rely on it. Compromise, we can invite the Minister of Justice to come and help us, to guide us on the interpretation.
Honorable Chair, I think what the Minister needs to declare is that the supremacy of the Constitution stands. This Public Finance Act of 2014 is now at odds with the national Constitution, so it cannot stand. Whenever there is a conflict with the national Constitution, that law is null and void. So the 2014 Act that you are referring to is in odds with the Constitution, so it doesn't stand. It doesn't hold water. That's what we are saying. Because all these laws are man-made and they have not gone through the right processes. The 2014 Act was done just for purposes, for conveniency purposes. So we are now looking at the supremacy of the Constitution, and that's what should stand. That's our point.